book tower is quite precarious, so we're going to try and go through this quickly. I think it's over 20 books, but this is collective over the last few months and I got some of them as gifts, which I'm very thankful for. And I have a matcha latte with me. So grab a drink because this will probably be a long one. And if you didn't see my last video, we're in my new reading corner, which I am absolutely obsessed with. Let's get into it. Starting with In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. I bought to read for Christmas this year and I did not read it, but my cousin read it, so at least someone read it. And it is a time loop holiday romance, and I think someone recommended this to me in the comments once when I said I like time loop books, so thank you very much. I'm excited to read this next holiday season. Next up, we have The Prison Healer. This is by Lynette Noni, and I have heard really great things about this. It is a YA fantasy series and it follows Kiva Meriden, who is a prison healer in the notorious death prison, and the rebel queen is captured but unable to compete in her trials. So Kiva competes in the trials for her instead, and if she wins, her and the queen will both be granted freedom, but no one has ever survived. So I think this is a trilogy that is fully published and I am so excited to get into it. Next up, we have Heartstopper Volume 5. I read this in a recent reading vlog. I loved it. I knew I was gonna love it. I had already read it also on Alice's Patreon, but it's such a beautiful story, such a beautiful world. I went to a Heartstopper event yesterday at an Indigo downtown where they had built like Charlie's bedroom in the bookstore, and it was so cool and there was a lot of like fun activities. Next, Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I also read this recently. I wanted to love this and I did like it eventually, but it took me a while to get into, and I don't love the writing style at certain parts, but it's also this author's debut novel, so I'm still very excited for the next one. But this follows Kai and Payton, who live in a world where the elites have possessed powers for decades gifted to them by the plague, and Kai is a prince that is being trained to be the enforcer, who basically kills everyone that is not an elite because that is a crime. You're not allowed to not be an elite. And Payton is not an elite, and she has been hiding in the slums her whole life, but then when she accidentally saves Kai, she ends up being put in these trials where she has to compete against a bunch of other elites and pretend that she also has powers. It's kind of like every classic fantasy series combined into one book. Next, we have Ruthless Vows, and I have the dust jacket off right now because I've been displaying it next to Divine Rivals right here because they look so good together. That one has a typewriter that says Dear Iris, and this one has a typewriter that says Dear Roman, and those are our two main characters. This book I am really loving so far. I don't know if you can tell, but I am like a little over halfway through it. Rebecca Ross is such a beautiful, beautiful writer. I want to highlight every line in these books. And it follows Iris and Roman, who are both writers, and they start off as rivals at a paper, but then they both end up going to the front lines of the God War to write about it for the people at home. And they both have these magical typewriters where they are sending letters to each other, and Roman knows he's writing to Iris, but Iris does not know she's writing to Roman. And the letters are so beautiful, and it's such like a fun magical world that's very different from other fantasy romances that I've read. Next up, we have Normal People by Sally Rooney. I feel like I'm the last person to read this. I got this one for Christmas and I'm looking forward to reading it because I just want to know what it's like. And this is about Connell and Marianne, who grew up in the same small town, but at school Connell is popular and well liked and Marianne is a loner, but then the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, and something life-changing happens. So I think Sally Rooney is kind of known for writing about like mundane people doing mundane things, but in a very intriguing, beautiful way. So I'm very excited about that. I know she doesn't use quotation marks, which I feel like might annoy me, but we're gonna find out. Next up, we have Fairy Tale by Stephen King, which is kind of a thick book, but it's not as thick as a lot of his books. And I also got this as a gift, and this is about Charlie Reed, who looks like a regular high school kid, but he carries a heavy load. His mom was killed in a hit-and-run accident when he was 7, and grief drove his dad to drink. So Charlie is 17 and meets a dog named Radar and her aging master, Howard Bowditch, who lives in a big house at the top of a big hill with a locked shed in the backyard, and sometimes strange sounds emerge from that shed. Then when Bowditch dies, he leaves Charlie a cassette tape telling a story no one would believe. What Bowditch knows and has kept secret all his life is that the inside of the shed is a portal to another world. So this is, I guess, a fantasy book. I mean, Stephen King is a really great writer. I have no doubt I'm gonna enjoy this. It's a little bit intimidating, but I'm looking forward to reading it. Next up, this is like the section of books I got as gifts. I got Circe, and I have been wanting to read this for such a long time because I read The Song of Achilles last January, pretty much exactly a year ago, and I loved it. Madeline Miller is a very, very beautiful writer. That story made me cry, and I feel like this one could also make me cry, but it's a retelling of the goddess's story. And Circe, throughout the story, discovers that she has the power of witchcraft, and Zeus Zeus is threatened by her and banishes her to a deserted island where she hones her occult craft and crosses paths with many of the most famous figures in all of mythology. There's danger for a woman who stands alone, and Circe unwittingly draws the wrath of both men and gods, ultimately finding herself pitted against one of the most terrifying and vengeful Olympians. So I feel like this is going to be just a really good story. I'm excited. Next up, we have Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister? I don't know. This is a thriller, and I don't fully know what it's about. Late October, after midnight, you're waiting out for your 17-year-old son. He's past curfew. As you watch from the window, he emerges, and you realize that he isn't alone. He's walking towards a man, and he's armed. You can't believe it when you see him do it. Your funny, happy teenage son who kills a stranger right there on the street outside your house. You don't know who, you don't know why, you only know your son is now in custody, his future shattered. Oh, this is a time loop book! That night you fall asleep in despair, all is lost until you wake, and it's yesterday, and you wake again, and it's the day before yesterday. Well, every morning you wake up a day earlier, another day before the murder, with another chance to stop it. Oh, the print is huge in this book because it's kind of a tall book, but I feel like this will actually be a pretty quick read. This sounds really interesting. How do you stop a murder after it's already happened? I honestly didn't really know what this was about, but it was on my TBR and my best friend got it for me, so I'm thankful. Next up, okay, we're talking about this in a set because I bought the whole Chestnut Spring series. I am missing, I think it's Hopeless. Is that what the 5th one's called? I can't fully remember. It's not out yet in Canada, so I'm going to get that as soon as it comes out. But I read Flawless, and I'm kind of obsessed. So I bought all 4 of these books, and they're so beautiful, first of all. I love the way these look on my shelf. They will be going in this corner of the romance shelf once this video is over. These are all like cowboy small town romances, and they're really fun. They're really fast paced, really easy to read, and it's been a while since I read like just a full romance book, and I had so much fun reading Flawless. These are not in order, but yeah, I've read Flawless, and I am going to try and read Heartless very soon because I think this is the second one. You don't have to read them in order, but I want to because I have them all. I didn't think I'd be a cowboy romance girl, but here we are. Next up are a set of books that I got from Book Outlet because I've been wanting to order from there for a while, and I didn't know exactly what quality the books were gonna be because it's like a discount online book retailer basically. I think they get books that have like little marks or something on them. I don't really know because these books are in perfect condition. Like, I'm actually in awe, and I will be ordering from there again. But the first 2 books that I got are classics. I bought The Great Gatsby, which I have actually read, but I would like to reread at some point. And I bought Jane Eyre because everyone that has read this has loved it, and I'm trying to get into my classics era. So even though it intimidates me, I think I will love it. I just have to like commit to reading it. It's also so beautiful. Like, I'm obsessed with these covers. I have Frankenstein also in this style. I'm slowly kind of growing my collection of these books. Next up from Book Outlet, I have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Now, I have only read The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez, and I did not like it. It was a like 1-star book for me, which I think is maybe an unpopular opinion, but I've heard so many good things about this book, so I really would like to give her another chance. And I think the main character, or the main love interest in this book, has like social anxiety, which I think will be really interesting to read about. I've heard it's handled really well. This is about Dr. Brianna Ortiz, who just got divorced, and her brother's running out of time to find a kidney donor, and the promotion she wants that's going to a new man doctor. Jacob Maddox completely flips the game by sending Brianna a letter. It's a really good letter. So I think they communicate through letters, and it just sounds really cute. So I am looking forward to reading this. My second book pile has fallen over. Next up, we have The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I have heard so many good things about this book, so I'm very excited to read it. I have not read The Dead Romantics yet. It's also on my physical TBR. But one, this cover is so beautiful and I love it, so that's also kind of why I wanted it. And it was on sale at Book Outlet again for like $7.99 or something. I definitely recommend checking it out. This one I think is the only one that had an actual marking on it. I don't know if you can see, but there's like a little red dot on the bottom. It doesn't bother me at all, so I'm happy to have this book that is pretty completely new for very cheap. This is about Clementine West, who moves into her late aunt's apartment and finds a strange man standing in the kitchen. She would have fallen head over heels for, except he exists in the past. 7 years in the past to be exact. And she quite literally lives 7 years in his future. Her aunt always said the apartment was a pinch in time, a place where moments blended like watercolors. She also said that love is never a matter of time, but a matter of timing. And Clementine fears she may be 7 years too late. So it's like kind of a supernatural-esque romance, which I think The Dead Romantics also is, but I've heard that this is just a very, very beautifully written book, and I've seen so many people give it 5 stars, so I can't wait to read this. Okay, we're getting there. Next up, I have Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I am so excited to read this. This is about a perfect world where the only way to die is to be gleaned by a professional scythe. When Citra and Rowan are chosen to be apprentice scythes, they know they have no option but to learn the art of killing. However, the terrifying responsibility of choosing their victims is just the start. Corruption is the order of the day, and Citra and Rowan need to stick together to fight it. Then they are told that one of them will have to glean the other. This is a kind of sci-fi-y book. I think it sounds really interesting. It's described as a true successor to the Hunger Games. Next up, this is my last book from Book Outlet. I got In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which is a thriller that I've had on my TBR for a while, and I don't really know what it's about. 6 friends, 1 college reunion, 1 unsolved murder. When the 6 friends are reunited, they will be forced to confront what happened that night. In the year's worth of secrets, each of them would do anything to keep hidden. I've heard pretty good things about this. There's a review on the back from Riley Sager, and I really like his thrillers, so that bodes well for this. And speaking of Riley Sager, our next book is Lock Every Door, which I picked up recently. I have never seen this cover before, but I saw it and it's a special value price, so this was really cheap. I don't know why, like, they manufactured this cover and it was cheaper than the other cover, but I'm not complaining. I actually have already also read this because I was in bed with the flu last week, and so I binged this book. It's about our main character Jules, who is hired as an apartment sitter in the Bartholomew, which is this very prestigious building in New York City. It has a bunch of these like celebrities and really rich, important people living in it, and she's getting paid just to like live there, which she thinks might be too good to be true, but she needs the money, so she moves in anyway. And then she meets a girl named Ingrid, who is also apartment sitting, but then Ingrid goes missing after saying that she was kind of scared, felt like something was off in this building. And so Jules spends her days trying to figure out what happened to Ingrid. The ending is insane. It got me. I thought I had guessed it and I was like half right, but it was more disturbing than I thought it was gonna be. Next up are a couple of books I got from BMV, which is a like secondhand used bookstore in Toronto, and I got A Touch of Darkness, which is the Hades and Persephone retelling. This was $8.99, which is great because I was actually thinking about picking this up at Indigo recently, so it was nice to find it used and discounted. And this is about Persephone, who ends up in a contract with Hades. She must create life in the underworld or lose her freedom forever. And I think it's like a fantasy romance, I guess. The best part about this book, okay, and this is what's so fun about like used books, the person who had this before annotated it, I guess, and their annotations aren't in this anymore, which makes me sad because I would like to see them, but they like color coded them, and there's a color for smut, so that already tells me a lot about this book, but I just think that's so fun. Then the last book, we have Betting on You by Lynn Painter. I was so surprised to find this at a secondhand bookstore because this just came out, and I got it for $9.99, which is amazing because it's also a hardcover. And this is another one of Lynn Painter's YA books, which I love. So this is about Charlie and Bailey, and I'm pretty sure this is fake dating, which I love. And they originally can't stand each other, but then they end up being co-workers, and they start kind of getting along even though they keep saying that they can't stand each other. Soon what Charlie was hoping to avoid becomes a reality as Bailey starts to see him as not only a friend but someone who makes her hand shake and her heart race. Ooh, but Charlie has a secret that involves Bailey and another bet Charlie may have made. That's giving after. I hope it's not giving after, but that sounds like after. I think I've heard pretty good reviews of it so far, and I'm always here for like a cute little cheesy romance. Other than that, I also bought the box set of the Shadow and Bone books because I don't have them, and I read them years ago on my mom's Kindle, and I was thinking that I might want to reread them at some point this year, so Indigo was having a box set sale and I bought them, but they're not here yet. Hopefully I'll get those soon and they will join my Lee Bardugo shrine that is on this shelf. But those are all the books that I have acquired in the past few months. I need to stop buying books. Like, we genuinely need to go on a book buying ban because my TBR cart has never been this full and it's a problem. If you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe down below. Let me know what new books you picked up recently. Hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye.